I'm Candice and I am definitely an alcoholic.
Candice.
Yeah. 11 years. 11 years ago, I never ever thought that I would be sitting here and that my life would be where it is today. I might go very emotional. It's been a hectic week, so I can't. I'm really grateful for this program because it's changed my life. It's changed my family's life. The fact that I can say I'm an alcoholic is a big thing. Because I had no idea who I was. I searched for everything outside myself my whole life to fit in, to be part of, to have a purpose. And when I came into these rooms, I found my purpose. And my purpose wasn't about me. My purpose was about helping someone else. And for an alcoholic of my type, helping someone else, that didn't happen. If I was helping someone, it was because of selfish motives behind it or something that I could gain. And before I picked up my first drink, I could see the patterns of my behavior on who I am. And I only saw that through doing the steps and trying to work the program to the best of my ability each day. Have I learned about my behavioral patterns? And let me start with my family. I come from a pretty normal family. I don't think any family is normal. Everyone has their stuff. What is normal? But my perception of normal was, my dad didn't drink. My mom didn't. She hated alcohol. My sister was an overachiever, always doing great at school. My brother was the sporty one. He was a blue-eyed little boy. And then there was me, the middle child syndrome that was always getting in trouble, was always blaming other people for my behavior. I would do the naughty thing and then get caught out and like, no, it wasn't me. But it was because of my sister or my brother or this person at school, or never acknowledging what I had done, always blaming other people for any circumstances that happened. Went through school, absolutely hated it, never felt part of, walked around with constant anxiety. I had no idea, you don't know at that age. But I always share about grade 1. When I got dropped off at school, I didn't want to be there. So at break, I stood at the fence crying for my sister, ignoring the teacher trying to console me, the other kids trying to console me. It was all about me and my fear. And I lived with that fear throughout my life. And I say throughout my life because I go through fearful moments in recovery. That's life. I'm powerless over most aspects that happen to me. And not knowing that growing up, I looked for outside things. I looked at other people and I wanted to be like them. I went into different groups and I wore masks. I never concentrated at school. And I was never really present at home. My dad worked a lot. My mom was an amazing mom, although I used to tell her that she's pretty shit, and I used to slam my bedroom door and tell her I hate her, just because I wasn't getting what I wanted. I was very entitled. I still can be very entitled. I come from a family that we were privileged. One of my resentments was when I was 5, I got a little black push bike, and when my brother was 5, which is 6 years younger than me, he got a proper bike, like a motorbike, and I was like, how's that? How can he get that and I get that? And it's so unfair, and life was unfair, and I fought against everything that was so unfair, and I deserved more. A self-pity victim. And I shared for years. My first drink I thought I picked up was not my first drink. Until a couple of years ago, my friend that she's my only friend left from school days, she was like, no cans, but we were in the bath and we were drinking. I was like, oh, I don't remember. And I still don't remember, but apparently that's what happened. But for me today, I know it's not about the alcohol or the drugs or the outside fixes. It's about me and my behavior. And I used all those things as a solution to take away what I was feeling, to take away what I was thinking, to numb me. Because I carry this void here that I need to feel good. I need to not feel this way. I need to run. I need to not face my own reality. And went through school, ended up in the dodgy crowds, like attracts like, and I felt more comfortable around other people that were like me. People that didn't really care about school, that wanted to use, that didn't really care about family, and kind of lived a double life until I couldn't do that anymore. Then I'm an alcoholic. I can't hide. Although I think I'm hiding something, I can't hide the way I behave and the stuff that I do. There's a lot of things that I stole. There's a lot of behavioral things that I did that I thought no one knew about because I was so dishonest. And I thought I was a really good dishonest person. And my family knew. They knew, they could see it. And when I went into my first treatment center, I'm not going to share too much about my past, but when I went into my first treatment center, it was because I had tried to overdose on alcohol medication, and then I tried to slit my wrists. And I had no idea what I was doing. Apparently I did it the wrong way, but I was just so desperate to not face my own reality anymore that, I just... And I guess if I look back at it, it was a bit of a tension, because Candice likes it to be about her, except for when you're all staring at me, and I get really anxious. And when I ended up in my first treatment facility, it was suggested I go to meetings. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't have a problem. Everyone else was a problem, and he made me do that. My last relationship that I was in was very toxic, and it was his fault that I'd done this. And it was madness. And I stayed in the art room for 2 weeks. I manipulated a friend to bring drugs into the treatment facility so I could use. And when I wanted to leave, I made sure that I left. I manipulated my parents. I told them it was fine. I put on a pretty picture to say that I've done all of this, and I left earlier. I am self will run right, and I will do anything in my power to make you believe a certain thing so I can get out of it, and I didn't know that. I was so sucked in my disease that it was just natural to do that and not feel guilty. It was so easy to blame people. Relationships was a big fix for me. I would jump from relationship to relationship. Even when I was in a relationship, I was constantly looking for another relationship to fix me. So I would cheat. I would be dishonest. I was a really nasty girlfriend, I had no idea how to be a decent girlfriend. And after treatment, I went straight out and I used again, because I was there for depression. That was my problem. Not alcohol, not drugs. I was there for me, and I am depressed, and I have an issue, so I need to take tablets to fix me. And everything will be fine. I can drink successfully, and that wasn't the case, clearly. I then fell pregnant with my daughter. The kids are not here. My first treatment facility I ended up going into, I did fall pregnant before, and I manipulated my mom and held her hostage to not tell anybody, but take me to Mary Stopes. My ex didn't want the baby, and I was using hectically, so that baby was not okay. And that's how selfish I am, I don't care about anything else, not even a little human being growing inside of me. And I opted to go have an abortion. That's how I ended up doing my first treatment facility in a psych ward. And coming out, getting back into that relationship because I could make it work. It needs to work. I was completely obsessed with him. And fell pregnant again. And that's where Chloe came from. Chloe's 13 today, and the journey that I put her through for the first few years of her life was not okay. I moved back with my folks. I moved out when I was 18 because Candice did what she wanted to do, and I knew what I was doing in life. And I moved back when I was pregnant with Chloe. I studied. Not really, I was just there. And the reason I mentioned I studied is because it's a big part of my journey in recovery today. The golden thread. And having Chloe and realizing I drank during my pregnancy. I tried to hide the drinking. I drank the day of my baby shower thinking no one would know I'm drunk. So I was quite pregnant. And I justified saying the doctor said it's healthy to have a glass of red wine. But I can't just have one. And I'm alcoholic. One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And I reached the point of so much destruction, self-caused destruction, that I went to my mom and I'm like, I need help. I can't carry on like this anymore. I've got this child. I took her to bars, I took her to dealers' homes. I had dodgy people in the house. I was a dodgy person. In the house with my child. I would leave her. I left her outside a bar once, and the only reason that I got back in the car and drove off drunk with her was because the security guard was threatening to phone the police. And my car door didn't even lock, so I left her there. And all those moments brought me to my knees, brought me to a place where I was like, okay, I'm not okay, and I need to get better. So I asked my mom to go with me to my first meeting. And there's a treatment facility, I'm from Joburg, down the road, and she phoned them, and we went the time, and they directed us down the hall, and we went inside, and I sat down, and it was not an AA meeting, or an NA meeting. It was called the Tough Love, which is like your, for Al-Anon, and my mom needed to be there. Because after I got up and I left, because I couldn't handle it, because they were talking about me. And I got up and left, and when my mom got out, she'd had enough. She was my biggest enabler, and I'd manipulated her so much. She had bags under her eyes. She was tired. I'd sucked the life out of her. I took away my brother's teenage years because it was all about me. He used to hold me down because I tried to jump out the car when they picked me up from places and I wasn't ready to go. And when she stopped enabling me, all my doors started closing, and I was like, shit. Which was the best thing. I ended up in treatment again, now on the drug side of things, and I went to a meeting every day, but the treatment facility I went to was all about bipolar and medication and, you know, you're an alcoholic and you're an addict, but you're also bipolar. And I focused on that stuff. And I'd experienced some of, not all fellowships are healthy, and I experienced some love there. And it made me want to keep coming back to the meetings. So I picked up the seed was planted, and I decided to go into a halfway house, and I ended up relapsing in that halfway house. I was there for about 3 weeks, and the whole time my daughter's school was down the road. I wouldn't put in the action to get up, I had a car, get up, go pick her up from my mother's house, which was around the corner, and take her to school. That was not in my mind. That's how selfish I still was. And I ended up relapsing, and it was suggested I go to a place called in Durban or Cape Town. And I chose Durban because it was closer to Joburg. My family didn't want me in Joburg anymore. And when I arrived at that treatment facility up on the hill, I was like a desperate housewife walking in, 22 years old, you know, have no clue about life, but that I wasn't okay and I needed to stop drinking. Not stop using, I thought I could still smoke weed, but that's normal, it's natural. And my reality hit me. You know, I'm so grateful for that treatment facility because it changed my life. It changed my family's life. It altered my perception. And I was exposed to the 12 steps. And going through the steps, for the first 4 steps, it was all about my relationship, and I actually got consequences to restart them. Because I was fixing off that relationship. I needed to come out of treatment and get back into that relationship. And a lot changed. I like to think I had my emotional rock bottom in treatment because of concern groups, because of people loving me hard, because my sponsor said to me, stay another month, give your mother another month's rest. So I ended up staying up in treatment for 4.5 months, and I left because during this time I didn't know, because I knew nothing about my family. I knew things, but I didn't know deep things. My dad went to treatment when I was 2 years old, and he didn't do it through the 12 steps. It was just, he stayed sober. He gambled and he used weed. I used to steal his weed, but he was never. That I was completely above me, so I never saw his stuff. So he had relapsed, and he was going to be sent to a place in the Underberg, and I knocked on the door to the big boss, and I was like, "He can't go. He can't go. He has to come here." And because I could see the change in me, I could see the change in others, and I'm like, please, can he come here? And my dad ended up going into treatment, and I moved down to Scotland. It wasn't my plan, it was God's plan. It was from the advice of my sponsor, it was from the advice of my friends in the fellowship, my treatment buddies, that, Candice doesn't know how to make healthy decisions. I need to ask for help. I need to be vulnerable and listen. Because I can ask and suggestions can be said, but if I'm not listening and putting in that action, then it's still self-will. I then moved down to Scotland and pumped myself into the meetings. I didn't have a job. I put in the action of trying to get a job. It was suggested I go and look everywhere, just hand my CV out. And I'd studied beauty. I'd had experience working at another place, a hair salon, as a receptionist, but I had no experience or passion or goals. And yeah, through God's will, I ended up going to Durban and got a job there at a hair salon and started studying again because someone else in the fellowship was doing it. And I really didn't want to do it. And I looked at my sponsor, I was like, I don't want to do this, but I'll do it. And through going against my head, my whole life changed in my career. It was hard work. It was 6 days a week. The times were hectic, but I would make a meeting every single night. There was a group of us that would go to meetings. We'd go to Durban. I did H&I. I threw myself into service. I did all the suggestions that were suggested. I lived alone for the first time ever. That was a big thing for me. I'd never lived alone. I never knew how to be alone. I had a fear of being alone. I look back at it now and I'm like, oh, all I want is alone time. So, my life is that full compared to my first year. My life was full. The fellowship in the brides, but I got involved in a dishonest relationship and I learned a lot about myself in that time. I had to expose it. I had to see my part. I had to do the next right thing, which was not be in that dishonest relationship. And, walk through that and learn to love myself. I didn't know how to love myself. And if I'm not loving myself, I surely cannot love others. That's just my perception today. Yes, I did get into a relationship at our 1 year mark, just before my 1 year mark, and I don't regret it. Oh, fuck. There's a suggestion for a reason. That suggestion, it's hard work. Because I act out. And I expect, in all relationships in my life today, I had expectations of let go of a lot. On how a person needs to behave. How you need to treat me. And over the years, God has given me a lot of growth to work my program. It boils down to going back to steps 1, 2, 3. And once I've done 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, okay, let's do 4, 5. And then implement 6, 7, 8, 9. And I can't work step 12 if I'm not working the rest. I need to constantly work my steps. Not constantly do my written steps. There's moments that I need to do that, but work it in my day-to-day life so that I can work my step 12, I can use what was so freely given to me and help someone else. And that's how I get out of myself. That's how I get out of my mess. That's how I grow. When I don't make it about me. And learning to not make it about me is hard. Because it's programmed in my brain that it's all about Candice. And if it's not my way, then I will fight until I'm step 1. This morning I was step 1. And I wasn't nervous about my share because God has given me lots of stuff that I need to do. And then once I realized I was step 1, I was like, okay. And I told my friend, I said, I think I know what I'm sharing about. Like, I'm powerless. I really am powerless over people, over places, over things, work, friendships, relationships with my husband, with my kids. I am powerless. But then, then I need to work step 2. Then I need to apply my solution, and I don't have to live in step 1. I need to work the rest of my steps. And I'm so grateful because I haven't had anything I've never wanted to pick up, and that was lifted in treatment. I wanted to run away lots of times because I can't handle myself. I've wanted to run and I have run, but I always try and do the next right thing, I always try and see my part and look at me, because in a relationship it's so easy to look at someone else and be like, you're not working your program, you're not doing this, this and this, and you should be doing this, this and this, and you'll be okay. Meanwhile, I'm deflecting off my own shit. And I'm a really good tennis player. And through trying to work the steps to the best of my ability, my life is incredible. My worst day in active is way worse than my worst day in recovery is way better than my best day in active. And my solution is not to go and pick up and use. My solution is not to go and act out. I'm not perfect, I act out and I learn. But I try to grow through it, and I try not make it about me as much as I can. I got my daughter back when I was 18 months clean and sober, and I put her first. Stopped going to meetings. I'd go one or two here and there, but I stopped speaking to my sponsor. I took back my will because it was all about this little child now. And I got into a really big mess. My sponsor didn't really fire me. When it comes to that, it's like I stopped using my sponsor. I stopped doing what I needed to do and taking responsibility for my own recovery. That having a sponsor, you're not really using your sponsor. And I had to get back to the basics. Because if I'm not working this program, I'm not going to have my daughter. I'm not going to have my job. Putting my job first, I put my job first many a times, and I get into a mess. And I had to go back to the basics, because my foundation has shown me that if I put my recovery first, everything falls into place. I can't make it fall into place, and I do. I'm a huge control freak. And I try to put things in place, like even at home. I know when I'm in a mess, I'm cleaning. And I'm picking up stuff and, trying to distract myself instead of sitting back and be like, acceptance. I live with messy people. And I can't fix everyone. And I can't deflect off myself. I've got 4 dogs, 2 cats, a hamster, a husband, 2 kids, and a mother-in-law. And if I try micromanage them, it's insane, And I was talking to my sponsor about it on Friday. I was like, I've let go a lot, hey. I can now walk past those clothes on the floor. And I can, because I was really, really, really bad, I jump, and then I get super lazy, and then I don't, keep my side of the street clean, because I'm so busy focusing on everybody else's side of the street. After getting Chloe, it was amazing, because my biggest fear was that no man would accept me with a child. I had this picture in my mind on how life needs to be, and I need to fit in that box. God gave me Neville, who has been a dad to my daughter. The shitty stuff, the day-to-day stuff. Her father hasn't been part of her life since I left her. And I had to learn to let go of that. I still have to learn to let go of that, because there's stuff is happening now between my daughter and him and I've got to have boundaries. I've got to be honest, but I also have to let go. Because when I let go, I allow God to work. And when God works in my life, it's beautiful. And it's never the way I think it's going to be. It's better. But we decided to get married. I got a job in Scotland at a salon because I had to put my recovery first. I was traveling through to Durban and it was hectic. I was in a mess and I had to step away from the job. And I found a job here and I held down a job at the same salon, completed my studies, and I worked there for 9 years. I was constant. I was thinking of it the other day. I woke up late once and got there really late. I was opening up the salon. My boss wasn't there. It was because I'd made it about me, and I haven't done that again. Waking up and going to work, not phoning in and making an excuse, lying, being dishonest. I learned a lot at my previous salon, and I'm so grateful. I grew a lot. I built up the clientele that I have today, and I found my passion in my career. And I love what I do every day, and I don't feel like I go to work. We got married, and it was beautiful. Everyone in the fellowship was there, and it was my dream wedding. And we've gone through stuff in our relationship, but I've always had to look at my part. And when I don't have a part, I need to detach and not create a part and not blame, because I can blame. But I always have a part. I always have a part. And when I see my part, it allows me to change and not do that again. And change is an action. It's not I don't really very often say sorry. I try and change it within my actions. And because that's what I threw out so often every day. I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry this, so sorry, and no one believed my sorries. And today my sorries have to be an action, a change of behavior. My relationships with my family. My dad's not in recovery anymore, and that's okay. That's not my stuff. I have an incredible relationship with my dad. I speak to him. My mom's very busy, but I speak to him more than my mom. And that's changed. Relationships grow and go down, and you go through seasons. I used to speak to my mom a lot. Now I'm speaking to my dad a lot, and working on making it about them. So how are you? Generally, how are you? And my dad phoned me for my sobriety on Wednesday, and he owned that he'd actually relapsed before. Just slid it in there. And he was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the woman that you've become. Sorry. That's all I wanted, And when I try to force it, obviously I kept fucking up because I'm so and right. And the moment I let go and I do God's will, I gain relationships and I gain, my dad telling me he's proud of me. And my mom. My brother put a post on Facebook. I love Facebook. I don't care what anyone says. I put it all out there. And for my brother to put a post on Facebook is huge. It was huge for me. And he phoned me later that evening, to laugh with him. And he comes every school holiday. His wife is a teacher. I'm in their lives. My sister and I love you dearly. I've let go of all my resentments. But sometimes it's not easy. You know, she's still got a lot going on, and I've just got to love her even harder. And I've just got to try and be a sister. You know, not try to tell her what to do, just be there. And I'm really grateful that I have my family, because they didn't want to know me. I had no relationships with them. My friendships today, I am so blessed to have people in my corner that pull me out of my stuff, to talk to me face to face about what's going on and how are we going to work through this friendship. You know, it's growth and so much love and so much laughter. I've never laughed as much as I've laughed in recovery than I ever did going out and jolly. I'm happy, and I'm really grateful that I have a high power, because having God in my life it's like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to do this alone. I can hand it over, and I can rely and have faith and walk through fears. I walked through a really big fear resigning from my job in the pandemic last year. Really big fear. That was hectic for me, and everything I feared materialized. All the shit hit the fan, and it was nasty, and there was gossip on both sides. I gossiped about her because, no, I'm not even going to justify. And it was hard because it's a small fucking town. Everybody knows everybody's stuff, and I'm a hairstylist. And people would come to me and be like, "Did you hear this?" And I'd be like, "Oh." And then suck it up, speak to my sponsor, and work through it. You know, and always try and do the next right thing. I don't always do it perfectly. You know, someone I'd studied with all those years ago is now my business partner today. You know, the golden thread. And when I spoke about it the other day, when she made an appointment with me a couple of years ago to get her hair done when she moved here, and I was cucking myself. I was like, oh my God, like she saw a lot, and she's going to judge me. And I even shared about it at an NA meeting in Scottsboro, and it wasn't like that, you know. I learned to build on a really incredible friendship with this person, and you know, we've opened up our own salon. Hard work. You know, people think when you own a salon, it's easy and you've got so much money and fuck, I've got staff I need to worry about. I've got bills I need to pay, but I'm always looked after. You know, my reps keep saying to open up a salon now. Salons are closing down, but God has made a way. I'm busy. I'm grateful. I love what I do, and I love my clients. And I love the people I work with. They've become a little unit. I spend most of my time at work, you know, so working my program at work is very important because those relationships are important. And I need to let go of any expectation when I wake up. I had my son that time. So much has happened over these 11 years that I could sit here and tell you about all the shitty times and when I wasn't working my program and how I acted out. But I always did the next right thing. I always went back to basics, get to my meetings, go through my steps, speak to my sponsor, make myself of service, you know, and through doing all of that, having a relationship with God. And a relationship is not one-sided. And I can't just pray and I want this and expect it to happen. I need to put in the action and work on that communication with God, and listening, because God works through people. And I am abundantly blessed today. I might wake up next week and feel completely the opposite. But I know when I get out of that negative, that stinking thinking, it's actually incredible. My life is beautiful. As busy, as messy, as complicated as it can be, I'm happy 95% of the time. And I'm relatively sane, I like to think. Because I can see step 2 stuff. Even now, I can see step 2 stuff within our move. I can see step 2 stuff within friendships. I can see step 2 stuff. And step 2 is the insane stuff that I do. And it's about changing that and not doing that. And trying to be a better human being, but always making it about others. I'm really grateful for everyone, and I'm grateful for my friends that have travelled. That's amazing. Thank you. I'm grateful for my sponsor. I'm grateful for so many things today that I never had, that I always wanted, and they were just so freely given to me through this program. Thanks for letting me share.